Sometimes providing power means lending a hand. So Entergy sponsors free tax return assistance and financial education to help our customers take control of their future. Together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
This means we can spend less time reporting and more time protecting.
New high-tech equipment developed in Louisiana and being used for the first time in Baton Rouge.
That would obviously be something they kind of want to box him in on an election year.
A look at the legislature just ahead of the session.
What do we want the state to look like in 10 years, in 20 years, 25 years?
A call to action to make the state we live in better.
Live music improves the quality of people's lives.
Singer-songwriter Mary McBride and her musical mission. Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha Williams.
And I'm Andre Morrow. Much more on those stories in a moment on this week's edition of SWI. But first, to check on some of the other headlines making news across Louisiana. U.S. immigration officials say almost 2,300 people are quarantined across the country after exposure to a mumps outbreak at immigration centers here in Louisiana and also in Colorado. The center here at Pine Prairie in Evangeline Parish saw hundreds of detainees on lockdown after 4 cases were confirmed. That was in early January. It means some people will have to do their court hearings via video conference. State lawmakers are receiving a $3.8 billion public school financing proposal. It includes pay raises for teachers and support staff and a package of $140 million spending increases. Governor John Bel Edwards has been on a crusade for teachers, and Wednesday this week, Bessie, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, gave unanimous backing. The raise for teachers and certain personnel is $1,000, for cafeteria workers and bus drivers, $500. 2 Louisiana homeowners are suing the Trump administration for delays that have kept thousands of victims of the massive 2016 flood from getting federal aid. Jeffrey and Amanda Meyer had their home in Livingston Parish destroyed, and they accused Housing and Urban Development of dragging their feet. They say it's a violation of federal law. The Meyers took out a $280,000 disaster loan from the Small Business Administration, only to find themselves among thousands of people who ultimately could not get money from a federal disaster grant because receiving both a disaster loan and grant is considered a duplication of benefits. Former Cottonport prison warden Nate Kane abruptly entered a guilty plea on the 3rd day of his federal trial on corruption charges. The sudden move cut short the proceedings just as his ex-wife was about to take the stand to testify against him. Kane pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud. It involved the purchase of guns he made on the state's dime. U.S. Attorney David Joseph expects the 51-year-old Kane to serve time in federal prison. Kane is the son of former Angola warden Burl Kane. The Bayou State leads the world in crawfish production, but cold weather and a shortage of workers to process them mean the 2019 season is off to a slow start. Even though prices have been high, as much as $9 a pound in some restaurants, so is demand.
A new first-of-its-kind crime-fighting tool is being used in Baton Rouge. Law enforcement calling it a game changer. We take a look at the technology now in place to track down bad guys that is made right here in Louisiana. It's a crime-fighting tool being called revolutionary.
By putting information where it is needed most, in the hands of deputies on the streets, we can better save lives and solve crimes.
This is Gizmo, a handheld mobile device that looks like a cell phone but can read license plates, scan driver's licenses, vehicle information numbers, and can access cameras around the parish, allowing deputies to get information in real time. The East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office is the first department to purchase and implement the new technology that the sheriff calls a game changer.
Sheriff 365 software takes every database we use in law enforcement every information source and all record-keeping systems and integrates it into one device for instant access.
Sheriff Sid Gotro says the device puts all that information in the hands of his deputies on the streets.
It even connects to ShotSpotter to help us identify exact location of shots fired within seconds. Equipped with fast, comprehensive information, our deputies are better prepared to respond to any situation.
Developers have been working on the state-of-the-art equipment for the past decade. It's made by General Informatics of Baton Rouge. The price tag for Gizmo and the operating software is about $2,700, but the sheriff says that cost is minimal. He says just one license plate reader is $14,000 and a basic ticket writer is $5,000. The sheriff says the new technology will replace a number of other systems that require additional fees for licensing and equipment.
The Sheriff 365 software streamlines record keeping by eliminating redundancy and facilitating evidence gathering. With voice dictation, photo and video capture, location tagging, and data carryover, we can now generate multiple reports from one report. This means we can spend less time reporting and more time protecting.
Currently, the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office only has 5 gizmos assigned to the Regular Patrol Division, Traffic and Special Community Anti-Crime Team. The agency plans to put 15 more on the streets in a few weeks. He says today's gizmo is only the beginning.
Not only does this software revolutionize the world of law enforcement today, it is designed for future technology and advancements in information gathering. With capabilities for virtual reality integration and automatic drone deployment, it offers vast opportunities for our future.
The sheriff believes Gizmo will save lives.
It means our deputies are better prepared and, as a result, safer. It means we are better equipped to protect and serve the community now more than ever before.
And get this, Gizmo is set up to buzz and vibrate to notify a deputy when a crime is reported near their location.
We are weeks away from the start of this year's legislature, and the feel going in is different from last year. Last year, a series of edgy special sessions dominated the headlines. Remember? What about this time around? 2 of the state's top Capitol reporters came in to give us a preview. It is always great to talk to Melinda DeLotte and Greg Hilburn. I know you guys are busy, a month out of what's happening at the Capitol, so what have you been writing about? Melinda first.
Well, I will say the focus for most people has probably been on the teacher pay raise and sort of the disagreements over how much revenue is officially recognized for the budget.
And that big package it's part of.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the governor is proposing $140 million in education spending increases, a $1,000 teacher pay raise, a $500 school support worker pay raise, and then some block grant increases for school districts. Only that money hasn't been officially recognized to even be used yet.
Right.
So a lot of the conversation at the Capitol is kind of about the maneuvering to figure out when that money's going to be recognized, if all of it's going to be recognized, and how that plays into the budget discussion.
All right, Greg, and you?
Well, this week in particular, the death penalty has been a hot topic, both here and really across the nation, with the California governor issuing a moratorium on more than 700 condemned inmates there. And there was a hearing this week that was, the Democrats thought that the Attorney General and the chairman of the House Administration of Criminal Justice Committee kind of stacked the deck in favor of victims who were impatient with the carrying out of the death penalty here. And so I talked to Senator Claytor, who will again file legislation to try to abolish the death penalty. He's tried before. Unsuccessfully.
Yeah, and we've had the going back and forth
right.
of Jeff Landry saying something about the governor.
Exactly.
And this and
So that's been hot this week.
You've also done a story that you've just put out about abortions.
Well, it's the lowest number of abortions performed in Louisiana in 10 years in 2018, and of course the governor is kind of an anomaly as a Democrat who is a strong supporter of restrictive abortion laws. He's very much anti-abortion rights laws, and in fact he's one of only, maybe the only Democratic governor to take that position. And so he celebrated, this this milestone. Others say it's less about changing hearts and minds than it is laws that are barriers for women to have access to reproductive health and abortion. So that's been a story that's always people are always interested here.
And
always gets people's attention, right?
And I suspect there's going to be legislation every year in the session. We haven't seen any pre-filed yet as of this morning, but every legislative session there are new bills filed to try and put more limitations or restrictions on access to abortion clinics. So I suspect we will have something else like that again this session, like we do every year.
Is there anything special that goes into your preparation as you go into a session? I mean, last year was crazy. It was like from the beginning of January through midsummer, it was one thing after another. It never stopped. This year, as I said, feels a little different. So, what about you as you prep for stuff?
I think people would normally say get some rest before it starts, because once it gets going, you don't really have a lot of time. You stay as long as they stay. So if they decide to work late, we're there with them. If they work weekends, we're there with them. But generally speaking, I just spend a lot of time reading pre-filed bills as they come in, so I can familiarize myself with what people are proposing, what legislation is going to be up, and then just talking to legislators to figure out what their main areas of focus are going to be.
What about the sports betting? Is that going to get any legs? I'm sure we'll talk about it. It'll be talked about.
Yes, Senator Danny Martini, a Republican from Kenner, says he's going to file that bill again. It didn't go very far last year, but now that the Supreme Court has legalized or allowed states to legalize sports betting, it's definitely coming back. The early childhood education advocate groups are seeing that as a possible source of revenue for early childhood education programs. So they are now kind of they've gotten in the mix, and they're on board with the possibility of trying to legalize it.
Sort of bedfellow, isn't it?
It always is. Gambling always
Education and gambling.
And the governor has said he is supportive of legalizing sports betting. So it seems like that is getting some traction. Although if you talk to Senator Martini, he says he doesn't know if having the dedication for early childhood education would help or hurt the passage of the bill, because a lot of people are against dedications of state revenue. So who knows, but it's going to be talked about.
Yeah, what about this being a governor's race this year? How's that going to play?
Well, it's an election year, so you would think that there will be less controversial topics in the legislature, and there will be less talk of taxes. We can almost be certain of that. Although there may
you don't want to be raising too many taxes and saying,
not in the
vote for me,
year,
right?
although there may still be somebody still may file a bill for a gas tax.
Well, and there are what you see from some Republican legislators is they're interested in trying to undo some of the taxes on the books. And some of that, I'm sure, is philosophical about they just disagree with some of the tax rules that we have. But also some of it is clearly designed to box the governor in to try and have to take a position on if he's going to oppose the repeal of a tax, for example, like the repeal of the sales tax that he helped enact. That would obviously be something they kind of want to box him in on an election year. So what you may see out of this session is not necessarily a lot of controversial things passed, but you may see a lot of controversial things debated by both Republicans and Democrats, trying to get people on the opposite side of the political fence like boxed in on issues that they could then use against them in campaign.
We love to have you here. I know you love to be here, both of you.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate it so much.
Oh, thank you, Andre.
All right,
appreciate it very much.
All right, Melinda.
Thank you.
One of the state's top watchdogs was the featured speaker at the Baton Rouge Press Club this week.
Yeah, we're talking about Barry Irwin, president of Council for a Better Louisiana Cable. A Better Louisiana is the message he delivered, and he outlined what could take us there.
He also issued a challenge to leaders in the state. Barry Irwin is a familiar face in the business and education communities, and at this week's Baton Rouge Press Club, he discussed a number of issues, but most came back to how we can improve the state we live in.
Here we are on 2019 with an election year. Where do we want to be as a state? What is our vision? Do we even have one? What do we want the state to look like in 10 years, in 20 years, 25 years, whatever it might be? What do we aspire to?
Irwin and Cable, Council for a Better Louisiana, have teamed up with the Public Affairs Research Council, PAR, and the Committee of 100, asking those who want to lead to focus on some areas that are essential for Louisiana to move forward.
We're going to focus on 4 areas, and I will tell you there are more than 4 areas that are important, to our state in trying to move things forward. State fiscal structure and policy, which would include tax structure, budget, and issues like pension reform and retirement. State education policy, dealing with early education, K-12 education, post-secondary education, and workforce. Improving our infrastructure, which is one we've certainly talked about for a long time, and also criminal justice and public safety.
Irwin also talked about some of the recent Wallet Hub surveys, again placing our state at or near the bottom of all states in several areas. Irwin encouraged residents and community leaders to take steps to improve the quality of life and living for everyone in the Pelican State.
For Louisiana, it's kind of a depressing walk through their website to go look at some of those things. For instance, worst state economies, Louisiana's 50th. Most educated population, we rank 48th. Most at-risk kids, we're the second highest. Best state for jobs, 49th. Safest state to live in, 48th. And the best one I could find really dealing with the states was that we ranked number 12 for fun. We're the number 12 funnest state, but we're the 48th for happiness. So I don't really get that. If we're 12th for fun, 48th for happiness, maybe it's a little hangover from all the fun, but those are the kinds of things that show up on that website.
Irwin says we can't accept last place.
It seems reasonable to me that we ought to be able to do a little bit better, or at least be in the ranks of some of our peer states and some of the other southern states, as opposed to where we are with West Virginia and basically New Mexico, kind of the ones that we kind of hang out with a lot. So what is our vision? We could have all kinds of visions. Maybe a vision is that instead of being at 50th in the next 10 or 20 or 30 years, pick your time frame, we be not 50th, but 40th. That doesn't seem like a terribly unreasonable thing to think of. And if you look at our natural resources, if you look at the energy and the manufacturing industries and the sectors that we have, the expertise we have in so many of those areas, it's hard for me to think that we should be the number 2 state in the country for poverty.
Irwin says plans need to be put in place that would help the state reach the goals set in the late 1990s as a part of the Vision 2020 plan. Leaders then had hoped that by 2020, Louisiana would have a vibrant, balanced economy, a fully engaged, educated workforce, and a quality of life that has Louisiana as one of the top 10 places to live, work, and do business. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy wants every college-bound student to know what majors are in demand and what a college degree to get those good-paying jobs will cost. This week he introduced a bill to do just that. He says the key is transparency.
This week I'm introducing the College Transparency Act, we call it the CTA, and the idea is to provide actionable, customizable information for students and family for education after high school. As I tell kids, I want you to be able to look in a mirror, and whatever you look like, you could get data for someone who looks like you. And it will give data about student outcomes across colleges and majors, and at the same time make sure we take care of the child's privacy. For example, we would like someone to know if they go to this state university, they may enter, say, an engineering program. They may graduate with $50,000 in debt, and they have an 80% chance of graduating in that curriculum, and that they will earn $100,000 within the first 2 years of graduating. Versus if they decide to go to a more expensive university, study a curriculum which is less useful, think gender studies, for example, nothing against gender studies, but there's no job market, they're going to end up with much more debt with a much less starting salary.
Senator Cassidy said the legislation aims to make education more affordable to students by updating the college reporting system, making accurate data available to student outcomes.
When I'm looking out the window, thinking of you.
That is American pop singer Mary McBride. She appears on the biggest stages all over the world and some of the smallest venues that are not stages at all. Those stops are part of her home tour, which is one reason she's in Louisiana this week. Singer-songwriter Mary McBride, I'm so glad for you to be here. So glad to meet you. You know, you have such a fascinating career, you and the Mary McBride Band, spending a lot of time in Louisiana, but not from here. So what brought you here to Louisiana this week?
I was originally invited to perform at a program that's going to take place this coming Sunday at Episcopal School. It's a celebration of newcomers, people who are new to Louisiana, new to Baton Rouge. And Charlie DeGravel, who runs a wonderful organization called Quest for Peace, is working on that project and invited me to come.
Let's talk about the home tour, which began 8 years ago in 2011, you and your band. And you don't perform at a place necessarily like the Hollywood Bowl or the Sanger Theater. You perform often at places where the public can't go. Tell us about that.
I had put out several records. I had been touring with my band, and I had a moment in late 2010 where I realized I wanted to change the trajectory of what I was doing. And I really realized that there were so many people around the country and around the world who loved live music and didn't have the opportunity to hear it. And so I took the burden off audiences to find me and put the burden on myself to find them.
Boy, did you ever.
That has been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I mean, places like detox centers or halfway houses, nursing homes. You also performed this week, among many places, for the people of Ile de Jean Charles, who are being displaced from their community. How'd that go?
That was an incredible day. I mean, we had been traveling internationally. We flew from Moscow to Paris to New York to New Orleans, and then went to Homa, spent the night, woke up the next morning, met our crew, met a whole gang of people who were going, and drove out to the island. Such an interesting story there on so many levels about the people who are living there, that for us to be able to go and play not only for people who are displaced, but at a place that is literally disappearing, that was an incredible experience.
You clearly have a heart for people who are in difficult times, for humanity. Where does that come from?
I have a love of music, and I have a real love of what music can do for people at any point in their life. And I think what we are trying to do with the home tour is tell people, wherever you live, whatever you're going through, you have a right to hear live music, and live music improves the quality of people's lives, whether it is for an hour or whether it's ongoing.
In 2005, you sang the song that was featured in the acclaimed Brokeback Mountain. How did that, or did that become a pivotal mark in your career?
The great thing about Brokeback Mountain is I was cast in that. I'm actually in the movie as well, and sang that No One's Gonna Love You Like Me. And when I was recording it and filming it, I don't think anyone involved with Brokeback Mountain knew what it would mean to so many people. And so at the end of the day, for me personally, I just was so proud to be a part of a movie that had such an immense cultural impact. You know, won the Oscar for Best Soundtrack. So it was, it was also a great moment for me professionally to be in that and to be recognized for that.
Yeah, and you have performed, besides the home tour, you've performed with thousands of live shows, people like Cyndi Lauper, Elton John. That's just to name a few. There have been so many, where names across the spectrum. Is there a name that stands out as, or a few that were, boy, that was an exceptional moment doing this live show with this certain famous person?
Playing on the concert, the 40th anniversary of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road with Elton John in the house was pretty fantastic. But I have to say, we have played with a lot of notable people, but we also play for a lot of people who are just rediscovering their talent. And that's what we're doing at with the home tour, is we go into places like we're doing in Louisiana. We're going to a detox center. We played the oncology clinic this morning in Baton Rouge. We're playing at Hunt Prison tomorrow. We're playing at Turner Towers for seniors who are living in public housing. But at each of those shows, regardless of the audience, we invite them to perform with us. And we are amazed, constantly amazed at the talent that is being discovered or that is being revisited. Because a lot of people who are struggling, who are in challenging times, that's not the first thing they do.
Sure.
But then when they do get up with us and they sing with us, it's such an empowering moment. I would say that those are the people that I am most proud to play with.
September 11th, 2011, like so many people, had a huge impact on America, obviously, but it did on the way that you perform also.
I was living in New York City. I was in Brooklyn. I watched the towers come down in real time and from my apartment. And I realized that there was so much emotion then and so much feeling about what had just happened that I wanted to write, and I wanted to write stories, and I wanted to write songs. And it was the first time I felt either a story or a song or an album, which is ultimately what it became, write itself.
The people who you reach out to and listen to you certainly appreciate it. It's a unique thing that you do.
Well, I appreciate them. You realize how many incredible stories people have and what they're going through, and for us to be able to listen to their stories and take it in, and to realize that people hit bumps in the road and people are struggling, but everyone has an interesting story that is worth telling and worth singing about if you can get them to that point.
I think I'll call you singer, songwriter, humanitarian ambassador and teacher of singing and reaching out to others. Mary McBride, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Our music mission there. And that's our show for this week, everyone. Remember, you can watch LPB on demand on your phone or tablet with our LPB Anywhere app.
That download is free on your app store. Now you can catch LPB news and public affairs shows and other Louisiana programs that you love. And please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
For all of us at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Morrow.
I'm Natasha Williams.
Thanks for watching. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support comes from
Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.